Yes, welcome into Sports Bet. Betting Insight today, Pauly and Teddy. Wednesday, December 14th. Big game breakdown. Rams, Seahawks. And we start with the bowl preview Saturday. New Mexico Bowl. Texas San Antonio against New Mexico. And the Las Vegas Bowl. Good one. Houston and San Diego State. Deep dive. Handicapping Part 2. Strategies to make money with the bowl games. We'll run that down coming up. And, of course, the play of the day. Bad beats, bad bets, bad for the books. We start in the NBA, some bad beats. How about the T-Wolves? Bad beat it for the Bulls. T-Wolves down 21 in Chicago. They come all the way back and win. Their largest comeback in 4 years. The Bulls fell asleep, Teddy.
Yeah, and the Bulls have had a tendency to do that all year long. Chicago, not very good in the big favorites role, and they dominated the game early. But sometimes, you know how the NBA is. You win too big early, and all you do is fire the other team up, and that's kind of what happened last night. I saw some pregame quotes from from Taj Gibson talking about Tom Thibodeau, saying essentially he's going to know every move we're trying to make, and he's going to defend his team or instruct his team how to defend us appropriately. And after that big early start from Chicago, Minnesota played certainly the best defense I've seen them play in the better part of the last month.
Yes, another bad beat. This one was tough. The Knicks-Suns game under, 101 at the end of regulation, goes to overtime, a ton of points scored in the OT, and Porzingis, looked like the Knicks were going to win. Porzingis, who was a monster with 34 and 8, fouls out. The Suns get the W.
Yeah, and look, the Suns don't have a particularly strong home court. And the Knicks have played some pretty good basketball over the last couple of weeks. This was not a team that I expected to take a major stride in 2016 and 2017, and they have. They haven't just been a little bit better. They've been a lot better than recent Knicks teams on both ends of the court. Porzingis, a big reason why, but last night, obviously, the big story in the betting world, you hate to lose those unders in overtime. Brutal beat if you had Knicks and Phoenix under the number.
Bad bet, same game, Atlanta and the under. Atlanta was bet up to 8.5. Final score 131-120. A dream for in-game wagering. And I guess the people betting the Hawks haven't watched Sports Bet because Magic did whatever they wanted on offense.
Yeah, they shredded that Atlanta defense. 36 assists versus only 9 turnovers. And Orlando's not a great offensive team. Elfrid Payton, 26 points and 14 assists off the bench against Atlanta. And we'd seen back-to-back games where the Hawks had shown fire and shown signs, and maybe this late November, early December swoon was in the rearview mirror. But all that money on Atlanta last night, a 2-point line move, the fact that they lose outright and give up 131 in the process, that's not pretty. And that's not a good sign for Atlanta moving forward. Yeah, they got a little bump. The fact that bump didn't hold for a home game where they're laying 8.5.
Yeah.
That's a problem moving forward.
Yes, welcome to the new NBA. The Cavs and the Grizzlies play again tonight in Memphis for Cleveland. No LeBron, no Kyrie, and no Love. Kyrie's going to sit again?
When you're competing for a title, your goal is not how many regular season wins can we get. The Warriors found that out the hard way last year. And when you have a team like Cleveland, where even home court advantage isn't that big a deal, the Cavs are a squad that has shown they're more than capable of winning a tough road game in a hostile environment in the postseason. So it's not about anything but getting to the postseason, staying healthy, staying fresh, and being in condition in April and May for a deep run. So all of these games for Cleveland, what are they trying to do? Yeah, they're trying to get some rhythm. Yeah, they're trying to win some games. But the level of execution I would expect for the Cavs gets higher and higher once we get in the post-All-Star break here. That's a long way from now on this NBA schedule.
That time of year again in the NFL, after what we had last week and a couple near misses, this could be a lot of weather games as well coming up. The high supposed to be 2 in Chicago between the Packers and the Bears. That total dropped from 43 to 40.5. Could be vile and nasty in Buffalo and in several spots. Baltimore, Cincinnati, New York. You're looking at rain, wind, cold. And you're looking at cold in Kansas City and in several cities here, Teddy, as we talk about late December games. Weather going to be a factor.
Yeah, and again, this comes down to handicapping 101. when you're betting games late in the season in the NFL, it's a good idea to do all year round for every game that you bet that's outdoors. But if you don't do it all year round, give yourself a little Christmas present. Make sure you check those weather forecasts. And when you check them early in the week, you have an opportunity to get ahead and get the best of the number of some of these weather-related moves like the one that you were talking about in Chicago over the weekend. So check those weather forecasts. What else can we say? They do and will have an impact on a handful of these games.
Yeah, how about a good bet and another vicious beat? This is at William Hill.
Vicious beat.
This is terrible. So last week, a guy hit a $100 12-team parlay, paid $300,000 parlay card, and then Monday night, a guy, to cap it off, he had a $5 parlay, a 15-teamer. It paid $100,000. He needed the Patriots to win by 7. You say, okay, did you hedge? He couldn't hedge because the line went down to 6.5. At least I hope he didn't hedge. But it's a ties-lose parlay card. Oh, no.
Yeah, that's brutal. $5 into $100,000.
Oh.
And oops, should have looked at those parlay card rules. Ties lose. And, of course, a lot of times that's where you get the bigger payouts is on the ties lose parlays, not the ties win parlays. Anytime you're talking about a 15-teamer, you're not going to hit a whole lot of them in your lifetimes. But when you're this close to winning $100,000 off a $5 bet, and then New England's dropping punts and dropping kickoffs and letting the opposing team back in the game, that's got to be a brutal, brutal, brutal beat for the gentleman who had that parlay. But it's interesting betting news. And when you're sitting there, I can't hedge. You can always find a way to hedge, man. And there's got to be a way to hedge, whether it's in-game, whether it's, when you talk about $5 into $100,000, you have to come away with something from coming that close. Unfortunately, this gentleman didn't.
Yep, excellent point by you. 23-3 Patriots in the third quarter. There were ways to make money, no doubt, although they were getting the ball down with the lead 23-3 with 8 minutes. Oh, man, that's horrible. Up next, big game breakdown. Who fires their coach Monday before a game on Thursday? Will the Rams have anything in Seattle? And we'll start the bowl previews in part 2. Betting strategies, how to make money with the bowl season. That's all coming up on a loaded sports bit. Betting Insight today on SBRpicks.com.
Go to SBRodds.com. Browse, compare, and shop live odds available at top online sportsbooks.
All right, back on Sportsbit, Betting Inside today, Pauly and Teddy at Pauly Howard. On Twitter at Teddy_covers, liveoddsportsbookreview.com. Thursday night, NBC. Rams hit the road to take on the Seahawks. Seattle 15, 38.5 the total. Seattle off a rare game where it all went wrong. Wilson, 5 picks, although 3 weren't his fault. First game without Earl Thomas. Defense allowed a passer rating of 150, highest ever in the Pete Carroll years. And how much was it because of Terrell replacing Thomas? Carroll, quote, that had no impact, none. Terrell didn't have to have a play to make all night. The ball never went there, end quote. He just gave a lot of credit to the Packers and the long touchdown to Adams off the bat. You knew Seattle was in a world of hurt when that happened.
Well, Seahawks are in a world of hurt from the get-go in this ballgame. Let's talk about that credit that Pete Carroll gave to the Packers. Quote, Aaron did what he does so well. He moved beautifully and found guys and made it look easy. That was very frustrating to just watch them have so much ease throwing, completing balls on us. That is a rare occurrence for our team. We've been playing a lot of years and have not seen a game like this. And you mentioned it. In the first game without Earl Thomas, the defense allows 150.8 passer rating. That's the highest ever since Pete Carroll got there in 2010. So no, they hadn't had a lot of defensive games like that. So you take a Seahawks defense that's pretty good and you fire them up after a bad game and you put up against the weakest offense in the NFL, you say, hey, maybe this is a matchup that works in Seattle's favor. But the loss at Green Bay, it was another bad game from that Seahawks offensive line. 1 week good, 1 week bad. And that Seahawks offensive line has been a real problem area for them against the Rams. LA, 3 straight outright upsets in the series. They swept them last year. They beat them already this year. 4 outright upsets in the last 5 meetings between these two teams. And several of them in this type of point spread range where the Seahawks were double-digit chalk. It's been a very problematic matchup for the Seahawks offensive line in basically every recent meeting.
Yeah, but LA's been a horror show on offense, especially since they made the quarterback change last week, even the Atlanta slaughter. The Rams' D-line held up. They allowed 2.6 yards per rush and sacked Matt Ryan twice. But going back to Goff, he pulled off the rare double of having a fumble and an interception return for a touchdown in the same game. The Rams' game flows the last 2 weeks. First 3 quarters, they've been outscored 65-3. Fourth quarter, they've outscored their opponents 21-3. Translation, they're only moving the ball when they're getting blown out in garbage time.
Yeah, Goff has produced absolutely nothing until the other team let up. And given the way that Carson Wentz has looked this year, and you don't want to put too much into a rookie season. Rick Meyer had a pretty good rookie season. But right now, if you're saying, did the Rams do the right thing in picking Goff over Wentz? From early indications, maybe not so much. He's got an NFL arm. I don't know if he has the NFL mentality, and I haven't liked the way that LA has responded to adversity in recent weeks, but considering that they have a new head coach, well, maybe they respond to adversity a little bit differently tonight.
Yeah. Seattle could get the total themselves. Also, we were talking to a mutual friend. He wants to have a prop. Put a prop up, who'll have more touchdowns, the Seattle defense or the Rams offense? Oh, man. You saw what happened last week against Atlanta. Live odds, sportsbookreview.com. Bowl season now, Saturday. The first bowl game, the New Mexico Bowl. Texas San Antonio against the Lobos. New Mexico 7, 63 the total. One of the best coaches in the country, and no one talks about it. Bob Davie. Few coaches get more out of what they have to work with than Davie. Back-to-back winning seasons and bowl bids. He took over a dumpster fire in a program that won 1 game 3 years in a row. And running that option and the big plays, it's not like Army and Navy where they're trying to grind out first downs. It's let's hit some home runs. 16 offensive touchdowns on plays of 40 yards or more this season after 14 last year.
Well, yeah, look, I don't know if there's been a team in NCAA history, and I didn't go back and look this up, but I'm not convinced that there has been one. 2 different running backs for New Mexico go over 1,000 yards for the season at better than 8 yards per carry. Gibson and Owens. That's hard to do, and that speaks volumes about what Bob Davie has been looking to do with the Lobos. You made a great point, Pauly. This isn't Army. This isn't Navy. This isn't Air Force. This isn't designed to grind out first downs and keep the opponent off the field. This is designed. This is an offense designed to hit home runs. They have a 2-headed quarterback. Lamar Jordan, he's a better runner. He's averaging 6.5 yards per carry. Austin Apodaca, he's a better thrower. Not like he can't run out of the backfield too. He's averaging 5.8 yards per carry. Lots of big plays and big play TDs for the New Mexico offense, which is not something we usually think of out of a quote-unquote option attack.
Frank Wilson got the kids to play hard in the first season. No real blowout. 63-31 loss against Tech, Louisiana Tech, that got away late. And they hung on tough at Colorado State and A&M. They were in those games. And they don't have playmakers, but they don't beat themselves. The quarterback, Sturm, only threw for 2,000 yards, 58% completion percentage, but 18 touchdowns and only 5 interceptions. Extra time to prepare for the option, though, Teddy.
Yeah, and in general, the option attacks don't work as well during bowl season. But I also want to talk about the bowl version concepts, because you're going to see 2 different arguments about teams that haven't been to bowl games before. This is their first try, or even with a head coach and a group of players who haven't been to a bowl game, even if the team's been to a bowl, whatever. But in the last 5 years, they haven't. You have bowl versions. And particularly for programs that don't go bowling every year, that haven't been involved in this experience, there's a lot of logistics to deal with in a very short amount of time. You have to figure out your opponent. You have to figure out how to get there. You have to figure out how to get everybody else there. It's not an easy process when you haven't gone through it before. And the markets say, well, they're excited to be there. In general, I'd rather be betting against these type of squads than betting on them. Texas San Antonio in that position for this bowl game.
Last game, live odds, sportsbookreview.com. Also Saturday, the Las Vegas Bowl, 12:30 Pacific on ABC. I believe Brett Musburger on the call. Houston against, yes, Jimmy said that early in the week, yes. Houston against San Diego State. Houston 3.5, 54.5 the total. Final game of the Greg Ward era for Houston, 27 career wins. Helps in the coaching transition to have a QB who's like an assistant on the field. Major Applewhite now takes over with Herman going to Texas.
Yeah, Musburger has it in his contract that he has to do the Las Vegas Bowl. It gives him an excuse to get to Vegas at least once in the month of December. I'm pretty sure that's the guy. I'm almost positive that's the case. But, this, are you going to the game, Pauly? I think I'm going to go on Saturday. Yeah, and I rarely go to the Las Vegas Bowl. It was supposed to be a nice day. And I got some friends that are going, they give me tickets. Yeah, exactly. Forget what I'm doing this weekend. Let's talk about the game itself. Look, Ward, 27 career wins. And the thing that stuck out about Ward for me, remember the season finale against Memphis? Everything's going wrong for Houston. The season, the coach is leaving. They didn't accomplish their goals. It was a flat-out quit spot. They didn't win the game. But Greg Ward played his heart out in that contest. And you're talking about the offensive coordinator sticking around, and Major Applewhite. He's got the head coaching job. You're talking about the defensive coordinator sticking around. He's going to Texas afterwards, but there's not that transition right now. And, of course, Greg Ward himself. He provides that run-pass dimension in a spread offense. San Diego State didn't see a whole lot of that this year in the Mountain West, and it wasn't a real good year for the Mountain West Conference at all, Pauly, was it?
No, it was terrible, but they do have Donnell Pumphrey, great running back in his hometown, ran for 2,000 yards this season, 6,200 in his career, also 99 catches for 1,000 yards, 7,300 yards from scrimmage, needs 108 yards to set the all-time record. Rocky Long's already stated that it means so much, and it's a big part of their game plan Saturday. How about that? Refreshing.
Well, yeah, they want to get the kid the record, and I don't blame them. That being said, Houston's run defense is the strength of that. Well, the pass defense is pretty good too, but it's not easy to run on the Houston Cougars. And when you're talking about these two quarterbacks, there's a pretty significant differential between what the Cougs bring to the table and what the Aztecs bring to the table. I don't trust San Diego State if they fall down. And you look at the quote from Rocky Long about facing the Houston Cougars. Quote, "We're not going to change anything. Our players play better when they know exactly what to do and when we're a decently fast football team too. The times that we've really struggled is when we have put a bunch of new stuff in and they're thinking too much. We're not going to do anything that confuses Houston, and guess what? Houston's not going to do anything that confuses us. So now the most important thing is how the players execute, which is always the case. So if they execute really well, it's going to be a great game." Rocky Long certainly has had success getting his teams to execute their game plan, but I think the Cougs are the better of these two teams.
Yes, up next, the deep dive. College Bowl handicapping, strategies to making money. We'll run that down, key points. Part one was terrific. Part two is going to even be better. And we'll get to the play of the day with Money Time coming up on SportsBit. Betting Insight today on SBRPicks.com.
Research before you bet. Be sure to check out SBR Picks for the best game predictions, breakdowns, and much, much more.
Back on SportsBit, Pauly and Teddy. Time for the deep dive. Let's get to bowl season again. Part one last week, now part two, College Bowl handicapping. Number one, Teddy, the it makes sense angle. Valid?
Yeah, I'm not a big angle guy. This is one we need to talk about. Teams that are 33% or less against the spread in the regular season have gone 43-21 against the spread in bowls. 20-7 against the spread as chalk. Why does it make sense? It's real simple. When a team doesn't cover the spread all year, and we're talking about the worst point spread teams of all the bowl teams, 33% or less against the spread, when you don't cover bowls all year, games all year, your point spread gets notched down a good notch or two, and you don't have a whole lot of bettors that are dying to bet you when bowl season come around. So guess what? You end up a notch or two undervalued at this time of the campaign. There are 5 teams that fit into this it makes sense angle for the 2016 bowl season. But 2 of them play each other, Baylor and Boise. The other 3, TCU, South Alabama, Southern Miss. Those are 3 teams that were 33% against the spread or less in the regular season that fall into this profitable, long-term bowl betting angle.
With the 30-plus minor bowl games, the wise guys dominate the betting markets. What are they betting on or against? And how do you beat a market based on the strongest stats out here? Number 2, Teddy, how do we find stats that lie? Explain.
Yeah, so we're looking for number 1, the it makes sense angle. Okay, these are strategies that will actually work. Well, last week in College Bowl Handicapping 101, we talked about theory. This is practice right now, okay? This, as you say, what's your number 1 goal for the entirety of bowl season? Find stats that lie. And especially, there's 30-plus minor bowl games this year. The wise guys, as you mentioned, dominate the markets. So what are they betting on or against? Statistical profiles. How do you beat a market? based on the strongest stats out there? Simple. You find the stats that are wrong. You find the stats that lie. You can find them all over the place. Let's talk about strength of schedule, something that people always focus on. Strength of schedule rankings routinely overemphasize one or two opponents over the course of the year, either strong or weak. And they underemphasize spots. They underemphasize injuries. They underemphasize injured opponents, success away from home, all kinds of other factors. And here, I'm going to give you a chart, courtesy of sportsmemo.com, which has all of the Sagarin ratings for the team strength of schedule. And it's not something, you got to look at it for a minute to really get it. But just let's talk about BYU in particular. Remember the beginning of November where we were saying no team in the country has played a tougher schedule than BYU, and they've been up against it every single week? You know where BYU graded out? They graded out number 72 in strength of schedule because they played a bunch of weak opponents late. And at the end of the season, the win over Arizona didn't look as good as it did early in the campaign, et cetera, et cetera. BYU did not play the 72nd ranked schedule. That is a lie. Look for stats that lie. This is one of them.
Yeah, well, here's some more. Army, Louisville, Houston, all ranked in the top 10 defensively. Come on. And Baylor, top 10 in offense? Give me a break. They were a horror show, especially with the injuries.
Yeah, and that's just the top 10. I mean, Army did not have a top 10 defense. Sorry. Louisville did not have a top 10 defense. Baylor did not have a top 10 offense, but the stats say they did. And there are so many, many more. If you get on through the 20s and the 30s, I just went through the top 10. Ton of stats that lie.
The issues to be aware of. The not so great home field advantage. Usually it's all right. We get to go somewhere. Let's take a trip. You'd see New Mexico and Central Florida. New Mexico's staying home and Central Florida's staying home.
Yeah, I mean, everyone else gets to go on a trip for the bowl game, and you're stuck in your dorm room or apartment, especially after finals, campus clears out. You know, they may get the benefit of some extra fans on game day, but not that much else from the bowl experience. So teams that are playing, and I don't include Hawaii on this list, because the Warriors genuinely prefer to stay on the islands than make the trip anywhere else. But you talk about New Mexico and UCF in particular, saying that they were trying to make a big deal over the fact the game was on the other side of town. We're like, well, we don't go there very much. Justin Holman, here's a quote. UCF is on the east side of Orlando, and when you talk about going to Universal and all those things, it's on the other side of Orlando. A lot of guys don't get out of University Boulevard. Alfaya and Colonial are so getting over there exploring these things will be fun. That's putting the right attitude on it, but let's be real. Bigger deal for a lot of these kids to be leaving home and the markets like teams playing close to home. In some instances, that can be a disadvantage.
And when the reward isn't a reward, ridiculous job by ESPN. There's 3 bowl games the day after Christmas. One of them's an early start, so these kids have to travel. Mississippi State, these kids got to wake up in Miami of Ohio to get ready for an 11 o'clock game the day after Christmas. You got to be kidding me.
Yeah. Hey, thanks for, here's your reward. We're going to screw your Christmas. We're going to take you away from your family, and we're going to put you into an empty stadium at 11 a.m. the day after Christmas. I mean, how many players from Maryland and Boston College consider Christmas weekend in Detroit to be something that has to get crossed off of their bucket lists? You know, and remember, if it's not a reward for the players, it's not going to be a reward for the fans. All right, lots of early kickoffs in that week between Christmas and New Year, December 26th to 30th. Early kickoffs are going to be in empty stadiums. If you find the team with the appropriate attitude and motivation, you'll win. Finding the team with a superior statistical profile won't help you one bit.
Yes, and you could see some dead venues. I mean, the Cotton Bowl, there are tickets available for $6. This is going to be the case with a lot of these early bowl games. Empty stadiums, nobody there.
Yeah, sure. And of course, the coaching change is something we got to talk about too. Beware the coaching change. You know, we love the assistants getting the bowl gig, but you want to read those quotes. Sometimes the assistant you think they're going to play hard for, well, the quotes will tell you the players aren't quite as excited about playing for those guys. Let's talk about some of the coaching changes so far. Houston, Tom Herman, gone. Temple, Western Kentucky, Jeff Brom, gone. Temple, Matt Rule, gone. USF, Willie Taggart, gone. There will be more to come. And perhaps most importantly of all of them, and Tom Herman, obviously a loss, but the assistants, the key assistants, the offensive and defensive coordinators, they don't get the headlines. If you track your coordinators and note the big losses, that's a good way to make money here in bowl season.
And last one, just to point this one out, some fan bases love certain bowls. Louisiana Lafayette 4-0 straight up in ATS in the New Orleans Bowl the last 5 seasons. That's something to watch too Saturday night. All right, money time. Yeah, go ahead. What was that?
I was going to say, unfortunately, that goes against the Southern Miss angle, where Southern Miss is a 33% ATS team over the course of the season. So while ULL has done very well in that bowl, it goes against something that I think might be a little bit stronger.
All right, money time, play of the day. Loser with Temple. Still a 33-21 run. Back to the New Mexico Bowl. We like this one, Teddy. What are we doing?
Let's take a look at the New Mexico Lobos, game number 202. They're -7. And you say, how can you lay 7 with New Mexico? You lay 7 with New Mexico because they're going to make a bunch of big plays against a UTSA team that may be in a little bit over their head in their first ever bowl game. Lobos take care of business in Albuquerque. Take New Mexico. The bowl on Saturday. That's our play of the day.
All right, very good. More bowls coming up the rest of the week. We're going to preview every bowl game. We'll get to more weather, line moves in the NFL, and also NFL previews. And we'll recap what happens with some injuries. Maybe another coach is fired. Who knows? All that coming up. Big week to close it out on SportsBit. Betting Insight today on SBRPicks.com.